Hello guys, welcome back to the Play on Footy YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at the round 8 roundup that has just been, and what a round of football. I mean, there was a lot of big games. I did say it was the biggest round of the year, and it clearly did live up to it in some aspects. We'll start off with the game on Thursday night, Adelaide versus Port Adelaide, the showdown. Adelaide got the win, 78-48. Saligo was really impressive for Adelaide. He got 115 AFL fantasy, 28 disposals. Crouch 103 AFL fantasy and 28 disposals, and Dawson 74 AFL fantasy. And yeah, he did really well there as well. For Port, Wines 105 AFL fantasy, 22 disposals. Butters 104 AFL fantasy, 33 disposals. And Miles Bergman is being Mr. Consistent recently with 102 AFL fantasy and 20 disposals. What I liked about the game was that the Crows' aggression or intent was a lot more clearer than it has been in past weeks. Rankin stepping up with 3 goals, and Jason Orr-Francis, I thought was really leading through intent at certain periods of the games, as well as Wines with 10 tackles as well. I think Ollie Wines really did stand up when it was needed. What I disliked about the game was that Travis Boak did miss a couple of chances. He kicked 3 behinds at some pivotal stages of the game. Georgiades is unfortunately injured or got injured in the game, as well as Connor Rosie. Now, there's a lot of heat with Ken Hinkley on that subject, and I agree that, you know, you've got to understand player management, and no doubt this was a big game. Showdown like the Western Derby, any derby, when the two teams from same state come together, it's a massive game. But I think Rosie just wasn't 100% leading up to it, and I think a lot of people were sort of wondering why he even played. However, it sort of backfired. And another thing I disliked about the game was Rioli needs to step up. There's been too many times this year that I can count where he's just been sort of, as a deep sort of forward, it's sort of hard to make an impact at times, but that's still no excuse. I think Rioli really needs to step up and really lead from the front. He is one of the senior members of the team. He has played in the 2018 grand final with the Eagles, but he really needs to step it up. On to now the Carlton and Collingwood game. Another massive game. This was on the Friday night at the MCG. Collingwood won by 6 points. Thanks to Nick Dacos, who was just massive again. He seems to not ever be tagged, which I just find that really interesting. But yeah, he kicked the goal, came over the back of a pack, ran onto it, kicked a goal. So that was in, I think, the last minute of the fourth quarter. For Carlton, Newman 144 AFL fantasy, Blake Acres 121, terrific. He's been doing really well the last couple of weeks, or 3 weeks, I should say. Walsh again, doing what he does best, racking up 33 disposals, 106 AFL fantasy. On to Collingwood now. Nick Dacos again really had to step up because you got Tom Mitchell out, Degoe out, so he really did stand up for this occasion. 122 AFL fantasy, Pendlebury 99 AFL fantasy, and the Ruckman Darcy Cameron 93 AFL fantasy. He's sort of getting back up to his usual form that we saw from last year. What I liked about this game was that it was a really high contested game, which we all knew to expect. You know, both have their, relatively good midfields, as well as their backs. Collingwood doesn't have the same forward line as Carlton, and that's something I'm obviously going to touch on with this one. But what I really did like about the game was obviously Dacos' clutch goal. He kicked 2 goals this game. Walsh's 33 touches, which is pivotal. And I also like that Harry Mackay is probably one of the most informed forwards in the game right now. He kicked 4 goals, 1, but when he's really firing and going hard, I would have liked to seen a bit more from Curnow, but Mackay at the moment is doing everything he can, and a bit unlucky that they couldn't get this game done and dusted on their terms. What I disliked about it was the Carlton tag didn't work. I don't know what sort of what they had in place around Nick Dacos, but when they knew that they had Degoe out and they had Tom Mitchell out, what were they thinking on Nick Dacos? It just clearly didn't work. And Carlton have also, what else I didn't like was Carlton have trouble putting away teams. This year they've been in really close battles. I can remember Fremantle, obviously Adelaide. They aren't able to put teams away. Like, they've got opportunities or certain windows where they can just build up a bit of a lead, but they leave it to really close margins and real pivotal sort of games like we saw the other night with Collingwood. Admittedly, they did get Freo done, but the one with Adelaide, that's just inexcusable. And then this one here, yeah, they would be disappointed, understandably. The next thing I didn't like about it from a Collingwood perspective is that still Sidebottom's been really quiet for the last couple of games. I don't know if he's managing some soreness or whatnot, but he only had 15 touches. Yes, is there something to be concerned about? I mean, he's getting on in age, for one. And we all know what Tommy Hawkins is going through right now. He's in 36 and he hasn't kicked a goal in 4 games. So there must be something going on there, but that's just something I've noticed. Next game was the Swans versus the Giants. Now, this one was a massive game for both teams in the derby. Hayward kicking 4 goals, 1, another big superstar for the Swans, and Heaney getting 99 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 2. For the Giants was Peatling. He's a pretty young up and coming midfielder for them. 115 AFL fantasy. Callahan 101 AFL fantasy, and Kelly 92. Swans grit. What I really liked was the Swans grit, especially with that big hit that Brown did on one of the Swans players. I forget who it was, but that was really instrumental of leading the way for sort of Giants in that first quarter. They got out to a 3-goal lead, and then after that the Swans sort of got back at them and then kicked away sort of as each quarter went on. Hayward's 4 goals for the Swans was phenomenal, and as I mentioned earlier, Grundy's hit outs at 35 hit outs for this game was absolutely tremendous, especially against a big season ruckman like Briggsy for the Giants. What I disliked was Tom Green's injury. That was not ideal for the Giants. As I mentioned earlier, C. Brown's hit. Now he's suspended. He kicked 2 goals, but unfortunately that wasn't ideal for him. Now that he's suspended for a game. Riccardi, he went MIA. He went missing. He got 10 touches and behind. So I think Giants forward pressure really wasn't there. But also their mids was all out of line, especially when Tom Green got that injury. So yeah, unfortunately, sort of just unraveled for the Giants this game. But I reckon next time around, Giants would definitely do a couple of things differently if they had their soldiers and a full force team. And unfortunately, they lacked that this game. And Swans came out the winners 98-69. Next game was St Kilda versus North. St Kilda 103 to North 65. Sinclair 156 AFL fantasy, Marshall 117, and Windhager 112 AFL fantasy. For North, it was Cherry 127 AFL fantasy, Fisher 103. He's really stepped up. He got 30 touches this game, so he's really sort of silenced his critics with this game. And McKercher 99 AFL fantasy. What I liked was Sherry's 40 hit outs. Come up against a big boy like Marshall. He's one of the big boys in the AFL. I thought he did really well, Sherry. As I mentioned earlier, Fisher 30 touches. I thought that was really awesome for him to silence his critics, and I really liked that. And Bobby Hill, he's all class, 2 goals and 24 touches. I thought he really led the way for the Saints. Of course, Sinclair did as well, but I thought Bobby Hill, just that more mature player, he really sort of settled the Saints and made sure they got the win, which they did. What I disliked was Phillips went MIA. Filippo went missing in action. He only got 5 touches. And Max King only kicked 1 goal for the Saints. And another one for the Saints, which was a little bit quiet, but very unusual, was Tim Membry, 1 goal, 1 behind. Membry being one of the more seasoned players, more of the mature players. Just needs to do a little bit more, in my opinion. There's been a couple of games that he's sort of been quiet in. And this game, obviously, luckily they got the win, but I think more of the Saints senior members really need to step up, like Bobby Hill. The next one is the Demons versus the Cats. Big win by the Demons. Really happy for them. 74-66. They dismantled the Cats at the MCG. Stephen May down back. Did really well. Really solid. 111 AFL fantasy. Windsor 99 and Lever 96 AFL fantasy for the Cats. Max Holmes, Mr. Consistent, 31 touches. 120 AFL fantasy, Zach Guthrie 113, and Tom Atkins 101 AFL fantasy. What I liked about this game was May was just a strong presence down back alongside Lever. Holmes, as I said earlier, is Mr. Consistent week in, week out for the Cats. He's doing really well in the midfield. Obviously, Patrick Dangerfield's not playing, but he's really stepping up as a young and up-and-coming midfielder. And Clary back to his best for the Melbourne Demons. 31 touches, I think that's really promising signs. What I disliked was Hawkins, no goals. He kicked, I think, one behind. It's 4 games since he's kicked a goal, so I think, he's coming, what is he now, 36 years old. He's probably in a bit of a form slump. And what didn't help in this game as well is his teammate Jeremy Cameron only kicked 3 behinds as well. And the next one was Gary Rowan for the Geelong Cats. Only got 4 touches this game. Not really sure what's going on there. But I felt like this game for the Cats in a nutshell was they left too much for a few that contributed. And in the end, Demons, with more of a team-centric effort, I felt, got the job done at the MCG. Another big game on the Saturday was the Eagles versus Bombers. This one was in Perth, Optus Stadium. Eagles 71 to Bombers 77. Kelly stood up in the absence of Yo, who unfortunately got injured in his Toronto game. He's going to be out for a week, they say, unfortunately. Duggan 98 AFL Fantasy. Barras 83 AFL Fantasy. For the Bombers, Darcy Parish 147 AFL Fantasy. Nick Martin 119 and Zach Merritt 110. What I liked was Waterman's 3 goals won, as well as Jack Williams. Waterman, he's just such a heart and soul player of this club, especially with Oscar Allen out. Darcy Parish, 36 disposals, really strong in the centre there for the Bombers, amongst obviously Martin and Merritt, who have always been week in, week out, really strong contributors for the Bombers. And Kelly, as I said earlier, stepping up for the absence of Yo. He got 100 AFL Fantasy. I think, Tim Kelly, he's had a lot of sort of, not hate, but a lot of sort of sniggering remarks of, they shouldn't have sold the farm. The Eagles shouldn't have sold the farm for Tim Kelly, but he's definitely repaying the faith. So I back Kelly any day of the week. What I disliked was Jamie Cripps' push on Nick Martin, giving away a free when, Waterman went back to potentially kick a goal in the last quarter, the fourth quarter. That was a silly mistake. And I'm sure the coach, Adam Simpson, wouldn't have had to talk to him about it. He would have known that that was a very silly thing to do, costing Eagles potentially the game. Yo, and Noah Long injuries soured the loss already for the Eagles, and Noah Long's been reported injuring his PCL, which is not ideal, and Yo will miss definitely next week. This week coming, I should say. And Liam Ryan, he was a bit quiet this game. He's still finding his feet, even though he kicked a goal last week against the Suns. I just feel like he's probably still trying to slot in to where he sits in this team, which is vastly changed from a couple of seasons ago. So, all in all, I thought it was a really hard and high contested footy game. I felt like the Eagles are definitely no easy beats this season, or pushovers like they were the previous 2 seasons. I think they've definitely sort of come and climbed the hill a bit there. But another thing is the Bombers are the real deal. They sit 3rd on the AFL ladder right now. So anything can happen yet. It's still a long season to go, but I just feel like the Bombers under Brad Scott, amongst all the Draper sort of talk about, Luke Beveridge and even Brad Scott commenting on Taron Thomas during Domestic Violence Week, which was just bizarre. I just find it interesting that, Brad Scott isn't silenced, but, Draper is, from the Bombers podcast and a podcast that he does himself. I just find that a little bit ironic. You be the judge of that. The next one is the Tigers versus the Dockers. This one was at the MCG. Short for the Tigers, 103 AFL Fantasy, Flaston 98, and Dusty Martin 87. And for the Dockers, really strong performance all round by the team. Luke Ryan, that is, 161 AFL Fantasy, Sarong 141, and Brayshaw 125 AFL Fantasy. What I liked was Ryan. It was just a Ryan defense masterclass, basically. He controlled the back line. I'll talk about Alex Pearce a bit later. Sarong was strong in the middle. He's an inside bull. He's just a ball winner, 38 disposals. And Josh Tracy kicking 4 goals. I think he did pretty well. But again, it's against Richmond, and they're so undermanned. They've got so many injuries, just like Lions really at the moment, which is really worrying and concerning for Adam Uze. Don't really know how he's going to turn this around, to be honest. And what I disliked was Morris Rioli, 8 touches. And Shai Bolton, I think it was 13 touches he got, MIA, so really no influence at all in the game. Alex Pearce for the Dockers, really quiet. Obviously with Ryan probably in fine form, he didn't really need to do much and didn't really get down that end very much for the Tigers anyway. And young Simpson, still finding his feet with only 5 touches. I think he's just working into the game. But he's definitely going to be a really good player with that sort of dash and agility that he shows, especially in the Western Derby. I think he's going to be a really fine play for them. On to the next game. This was a massive story of the week, or game of the week, I should say, in terms of it puts more pressure on Bevo. So the Dogs got done by the Hawks. Dogs 91 to Hawks 98. Tim English in the ruck, 126 AFL fantasy. Trelaw 115, and Bailey Dale, 105 AFL fantasy. And for the Hawks, it was Impey 126, Lloyd Meek 117 AFL fantasy, and Moore 116 AFL fantasy. What I liked about it was English's 2 goals and 31 hit-outs. I thought he, demanded the centre clearances and really controlled the ball for the Doggies. Impey 27 touches, and the Bont 26 touches and 2 goals. What I disliked about it was after 2 goals, Hugo Hagen's just been really quiet. I know he's going through a lot of personal stuff, family stuff. I understand that, but we really need to see more from a former, pick one. He needs to really step up and really lead the Doggies. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion that has been started, obviously, by Draper from Essendon, but, if this continues, Bevo is going to have a whole list change. A lot of players walking away. I know Caleb Daniels is definitely going to be one of those guys. But yeah, it's interesting. What's going to really happen there with Bevo? It's going to be a big game against Richmond this week. That's all I know. Another thing I disliked about this game is Ginnivan 1 goal 1, a little bit quiet. He hasn't really been doing much. Again, he needs to lift. He's all talk but no action, which is not a good thing. And Will Day, 12 touches for the Hawks. He was a little bit MIA as well. I'm not really sure if he's managing something or just trying to work back into the game after a long time out with his injury. So, yeah, they're the takeaways. But, big talk about Bevo in this game. And, unfortunately, a lot of pressure on him. But great win by Sam Mitchell's Hawks. I think Mitchell is definitely on the right track with the Hawks, and formulating a plan from not just this year, but for many years to come, and where he wants his Hawks to be. So I think really good signs. Last game was the another Queensland derby, or the Queensland Q clash as they call it. The Brisbane Lions 79 to the Suns 45. Zorko, huge game, monstrous game, 184 AFL fantasy. Dunkley 151 and Lockie Neal 137 AFL fantasy. And the Suns, Flanders 104 and Anderson 98 AFL fantasy, and Farini 82 AFL fantasy. What I liked about this game was the Lions mids just dominated. Lions scoring from turnovers was huge, as well as who was it here? Ben King kicking 3 goals for the Suns. I think that was the only positive that came for the Suns for this game. And what I disliked was Suns had just too many passengers in this game. Noah Anderson and Flanders are always the ones that come to mind, or even sometimes Took Miller were big contributors. But yeah, it was unfortunately, I think, massive step backwards for the Suns in a lot of ways. And I know basically Hardwick's not going to admit that, but from a visual point of view and what I saw in the game, it was just, they lost everything that they sort of had against the Eagles in their last home game. They just went out the window, wasn't even there. So, and I don't really think even Lions did that much different to what they've been doing in past weeks. It's just made Lions look so much better than what they actually are. Unfortunately, the Suns just took too many steps back in this game. Suns backline got exposed. Mac Andrew obviously is pretty new, but he got sort of, I don't want to say manhandled, but he didn't show that contested marking that he's shown in previous weeks. He's really good at that, but he just couldn't really master it this game. And Suns couldn't hang on to the footy. They just gave it up. So the Lions could just score on turnover. So big work for Hardwick to get onto and fix. But all in all, I think Lions did well considering they had so many injuries. I think they've done 2 ACLs, Darcy Gardner, and I can't remember the other player. I think it was Lincoln McCarthy. But I think Lions are going to be joining the Tigers down the bottom this year. They've got too many injuries this year, and it's going to be extremely hard for them to play finals, I think, at this stage. Could be wrong, but just from what I'm noticing, it's not looking too crash hot for Fags and the Lions. But let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe. For those that have subscribed, thank you so much. I'll be continuing to do the predictions next. That'll be the next video on my list. But thank you so much, guys, and look forward to round 9. Cheers.